so that we can use it afterwards for people who can't be here today, and anybody who wants to look at it afterwards. So before I introduce the panel, I'd just like to confirm the format for the next 45 minutes. So firstly, I'm going to introduce our speakers and invite them to briefly give a little bit about their background, what's brought them here today, what their perspective is. And then we're going to have some Q&A, so some questions from the speakers that we've had in advance, and also some questions from the audience, either questions in advance or questions in the chat. So I'm going to be looking at that and making sure that's incorporated into the conversation as we go through. So we've got a fantastic lineup of speakers today, all very well qualified to speak on our topic, so providing some inspiration and also information on our topic today, healthy phone use in a complex world. We've got Amy Williamson from Whakakotahi, New Zealand Transport Agency, George Haswell, University of Canterbury, Sam Ainsworth from Hillmorton High School in Christchurch, and we've also got, last but not least, Taíno Bendz, who is our founder of Phone Free Day, also parent, author, speaker on digital well-being, and he is dialing in from Sweden, where it's 1 a.m. So in the interests of making sure he's awake and stays awake, I would like to invite Taíno to be our first speaker to introduce himself. So please, Taíno, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madeline. Yeah, super happy to join, and yeah, thanks fellow speakers and everyone dialing in as well. So yeah, I'll just briefly introduce myself and maybe just super quickly touch on the background to Phone Free Day. So my name's Taíno, and by trade I'm an engineer. I've spent 10 years in the technology sector, working in various of different sectors, including IT and digitalization. And then a couple of years ago in Auckland, I started really realizing how digital tech was kind of coming between me and my kids, me and stuff at work. I was starting to see how social media, how constant connectivity was affecting people around me. I was in IT at the moment and had, team members who were quite stressed and also had their focus scattered. So I started thinking about, am I the only one feeling this, experiencing this? And I observed, on playgrounds, parents being glued to their phones instead of to their kids and so on. So Phone Free Day came about, three years ago now. Really, as Madeline said, just out of my concern of wanting to do something about this, not sure what it would lead to. So the response has been really huge, which speaks to a real need. And I'm really curious on hearing the other speakers address this also, how, that there's a real need to talk about this because no one taught us how to use this technology. So since then, Phone Free Day, the message has reached, we estimate, around 1 million people, not actively participating, but the message. So, some form of thing like that through media, through all sorts of different things. And as Madeline said, now I speak on this topic, and I'm writing a book about it as well called Tech-Life Balance. So really trying to inspire people for a positive relationship with tech. So that's me.
Thanks, Taíno. And yeah, as Taíno said, one of the really important things is to kind of get a conversation going about this, because the more people that we talk to, it turns out the more people do have concerns. And so that's a really important part of it, just to, to make sure that there's awareness and that we are bringing attention to healthy phone use. So thanks, Taíno. And next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Amy Williamson. So Amy's the Principal Advisor, Road User Choices at Whakakotahi, New Zealand Transport Agency, and is a specialist in road safety, regulatory research and policy. And New Zealand Transport Agency have been a great supporter of Phone Free Day, so we're very lucky to have Amy on the panel. So Amy, over to you. A little bit about your interest in healthy phone use.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for the introduction, Madeline, and thanks very much for having me along, and Narelle too, who's on the call. So as Madeline said, I'm the principal advisor for road user choices in the road safety team here at Waka Kotahi. So my job is along with others in my wonderful team, are here to provide strategic and I guess in doing so technical advice and expertise to inform our approach and our plan for improving road safety in Aotearoa, and supporting the delivery of our road safety strategy, Road to Zero, which very much involves what we call a system response, where we need to take action across the system and strengthen all parts of the system across safe speeds and our infrastructure and our vehicle safety and our work-related road safety, how we manage the system. And I think it's important to recognise that a really key reason for that is because we do accept that people as human beings make mistakes from time to time, and so we need to design the system in a way that minimises not only the exposure and likelihood of a crash, but the severity of those crashes when they do happen, so that people aren't killed or seriously injured as a result. But part of that overall system response is that we all need to share in the responsibility for road safety, and that involves and includes road users being compliant and alert, not impaired or distracted. So, whilst we accept that people will make mistakes from time to time, we still need to support people to make good road user choices, and that includes, of course, encouraging people not to use their phones while driving. So it is a behaviour that can be very distracting. It's a known contributing factor to crashes. So yeah, we're really supportive of this initiative that encourages people to put their phones away or perhaps use them a little bit differently, including when they're driving. So I guess when we are thinking about the problem itself, well, people can be distracted by all sorts of things, can't they, when they're driving, things that are either in the vehicle or outside the vehicle, including our mobile phones. We can do everything on our smartphones these days, can't we, including what we know to be some of the more common distracting activities, particularly texting, but also talking on your phone, using your GPS, adjusting music. The actual extent to which mobile phone use contributes to crashes can actually be quite difficult to quantify, because it might not be observed or reported. Looking at the latest data over the past sort of 10 years or so, about 22% of driver distraction crashes, or in other words, where distraction was identified as a contributing factor, involved mobile phone distraction, which is around 250 crashes a year, mostly minor injury crashes. So there are comparatively fewer fatal and serious crashes where mobile phone use is a contributing factor, but that is still too many. It is still a contributing factor in those serious crashes. So something that we take really seriously. Interestingly too, sort of when we do look back over since around 2011, there has been an increase in crashes where mobile phone use distraction was identified as a contributing factor. So that's kind of an interesting trend that we've seen over the years. The last sort of point I'd make before handing over to one of our other lovely speakers is, it is illegal, of course, in New Zealand to use a handheld mobile phone while driving, but it is still a fairly common sight on our roads. The actual scale of distracted driving, though, is mostly anecdotal. So we actually started, people may or may not be aware that we started a 6-month trial back in May up in Auckland, Tamaki Makaurau, using safety cameras to better understand the scale of distracted driving, and seatbelt wearing as well. So this is sort of technology that's already used over in other jurisdictions like Australia and the UK. It's a trial, so no enforcement action is being taken, and no decisions have been made around the future use of that technology. But we're really excited about that, because it'll allow us to gain really valuable data on the issue and inform future decisions about how we can intervene. We've got some initial data, of course, and we'll be putting that up on our website periodically until the trial ends in November. But that initial data has shown on average around 800 potential offences per day, or in other words, around 1% of drivers passing the camera sites. So and that's broadly in line with other trials that have been done elsewhere. So I might stop there, and I can talk a little bit more perhaps later in the session around what we're doing as far as our marketing campaign and things that we promote. But I'll hand back to you, Madeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, we could have another whole webinar just on that, but it's so great to see those campaigns now coming into the media, and I think it's something that we can all relate to, each and every one of us. Even if you've got your bag on the seat and your phone goes off, there's some level of distraction there going on. So it's interesting, your point about how easily diagnosed is the cause of the the distraction. Is it cell phones? But yeah, really interesting, and something that we can all relate to and be more aware of, I think. So thank you, Amy. And I'd like to now introduce Sam Ainsworth from Hillmorton High School. And many of us will be aware of the great work that Hillmorton High School have done over the last couple of years in taking a leadership position on digital wellbeing and introducing a ban on cell phones in their school. And this is something that Sam was instrumental in bringing about. So Sam, please, over to you to tell us a little bit about your story and what's brought you here today.
Maria ora kia koutou. Yeah, thanks for having me as well. Yeah, essentially I'm from London originally. I arrived in Christchurch just before the pandemic, so in kind of October 2019, which is a great time with my wife, who's from Christchurch, and our two young daughters. And certainly I was a deputy principal in London and then deputy principal here pretty soon after arriving at the start of 2020. And one of the things that we were looking at as a school in 2020 was mobile cell phone usage of our students in and around the school, in lessons and beyond lessons and so on. And our board were really keen to look at whether we should look to, I guess, I don't know the word ban, but reduce the number of cell phones, but it is a ban essentially of cell phone usage within school and what impact that would have on our learners. And so in 2020 we did a lot of consultation with our parents, with the students themselves, with our teachers, and it was really challenging because I certainly think, not being from Christchurch, I didn't really, I guess, understand the impact of the earthquakes, other than what you can really see and feel. And I think probably those earthquakes put cell phones in the hands of lots of young people for safety precautions and for being able to be in contact with people. And so it was really interesting in the consultation with our whānau and with our teachers in particular. Students were obviously against the rule, completely against it. But our kind of whānau and our teachers were, they were on the fence a little bit. They could see the benefit of having them within the school grounds, and at the same time, they can see that with the research that we were giving them, they could see that they were really problematic. And they are, as you were saying just then, Amy, they are real distractions in the classroom and beyond. So we did lots of consultation, and we made the decision to say that from 9 till 3, our school day, we are cell phone free. And that's a bit of our kind of a wee slogan that we use. And we started off just saying that ultimately cell phones were not, they were not allowed to be out and about in school use or in the use of students at break times within lessons at all. So from 9 till 3, we shouldn't see or hear them. They should be turned off and they should be in bags. We didn't say they couldn't be on site at all. We know that parents want their students to have cell phones. We know that some of our senior students are 18, 19 years old and need to go to work and contact their employers. But during the school day, they were not to be seen or heard. we saw certainly immediately that we had not a battle, but we'd confiscate, or we'd ask students to hand in their phones when seen or used, but it was around 23, I think 23.2 phones per day in February of 2021. So a big ask on our teachers, lots of conflict and battles that they could potentially have with, we're a composite co-ed school, got about 1,100 students from year 7 up to 13. So lots of potential battles, as well as the day-to-day teaching we're asking our teachers to do. So, but that's down to now probably about 11.1 phones per week. So we've had a huge reduction in cell phone usage that we see and hear. Obviously, there'll be students that may not do it in our site. But what we do see and hear, we still act on. And I think having that real hard line with the students has had a real impact. We now have staff from other schools come to school and say, hey, your break times they're so noisy. And that's because more and more of our students are playing. They're playing sport, they're playing with each other, they're running around, and they're interacting. And so we had a number of, I guess, different reasons for, I guess, eradicating the use of cell phones within our school. One, they're a real distraction to learning, but also the way in which that young people are now using the phones and the impact of algorithms and social media on young people is huge. And I think sometimes if you allow something to happen in a school or in any institution, you're essentially encouraging it to happen. And so we felt it was really important for us that we stopped the cell phone usage. And now we have a number of other schools kind of, getting in contact to find out what the impact has been. And yeah, from us, it's been incredibly positive and powerful. We think about cyberbullying and online bullying that is still in society, but they're often now, we deal with those incidents that have taken place outside of school, and that's reduced significantly in school. So I think for the health of our young people, which is why we're here, it's been a huge success for us in the school.
Thank you, Sam, and congratulations, and well done for taking a leadership position on it, because it takes somebody to go first, and I'm sure that there are a lot of other schools. Now that I'm aware of your work, I saw another school today, actually. I think it was Waitaki Girls were phone free, and so it takes someone to go first and others to follow. Yeah. So thank you for being here and for being a leader.
No worries. I will say on that point, though, that we one of the influential things for us is there was a school that went certainly before us, which is St Margaret's Girls' School. I think it's a private school in Christchurch. And they certainly went before us. And one of the most powerful things that helped us on our journey was one of their students came to speak to our kind of wider whānau and our parents and caregivers. And some of the things that she said really resonated with them. I have more friends, I'm being more social, I'm taking part in more activities. And that alone really swung us to the school. So St Margaret's a big hats off to them too.
Yeah, and of course that's going to resonate with your audience as well, because the peer influence is going to be huge amongst students of that age. Yeah, great, thank you, Sam. And I'd now like to introduce George. George is a health and wellbeing promoter at University of Canterbury and has been a very loyal and energetic supporter of Phone Free Day, and a recent finalist in the Support Services Staff Member of the Year Award. So George is very much committed to his student well-being and making a difference to student experience. So George, thank you for being here, and perhaps I could invite you to tell us a little bit about your interest in this subject.
Kia ora, Madeline, thank you. Kia ora koutou, ko George toku ingoa, he kai hapai oranga taku tūranga mahi. My name's George. I'm the Health and Wellbeing Promoter at the University of Canterbury, Te Whare Wānanga o Waitaha. So I guess health promotion is a couple of things. It's about strengthening community action, but it's also about developing personal skills for our community and our students in particular. So that's really where my focus lies within our context, is about building a community culture, a healthy digital culture, and then also building and strengthening healthy digital citizens within our community, so that primarily being our students, but that also extends to our staff and parents and whānau of our students. So I think for us, for those of you in Aotearoa, New Zealand, you may know that last week was Mental Health Awareness Week. And the theme of Mental Health Awareness Week was reconnect with the people and places that lift you up and enhance your well-being. And so I think that's a really big focus for us as a campus, is that word reconnect, as we transition from what was a pretty hefty online learning focused, not only first semester in 2022, but full years worth of kind of online learning in 2020 and 2021. So we're looking now to reconnect as a campus, to bring our community together, and part of that will be a little bit of behaviour change that I think Amy spoke to around just how reliant our students, staff and community may have become on not only their phones, but just technology in general. I mean, we're seeing a slow uptake now, but it is happening, of students attending in-person classes again, which is a big part of the student experience. For those of you who have been at a tertiary institution to study or visit, the kind of vibrancy of the campus all stems from students turning up to attend those classes and then making connections and engaging with the facilities on campus and the events and things like that. So we're going through a big behaviour change period at the moment, but it really stems down to strengthening our community culture, but also our individuals kind of understanding. I think university is all about becoming a critical thinker. It doesn't matter what you're studying, it's all about becoming a critical thinker and being able to go out into the world and have that critical lens put on to whatever industry or focus that you've got. So for us, that extends to our students in terms of their use of technology and really wanting them to become critical users of it and understand that balance between tech and life that Taíno spoke about before. So yeah, really excited to be here, and I've already learned so much just from this introductory period listening to the other fantastic panelists. So yeah, really looking forward to the rest of the discussion today. Thanks.
Thank you, George. And in fact, George, you've given us a lovely segue into our first question as we go into the Q&A. And this was a question from one of the speakers in advance, where there's an interest in hearing views now that others may have on the impact of COVID-19 on health and well-being when considering connectivity and the use of technology. And I think this is a great question because, of course, during lockdown, technology was our only link with the outside world, and that was kind of a new experience for all of us. We needed our phone on us at all times to scan and to show our vaccination certificates. And yeah, it's interesting to explore how this has maybe strengthened our attachments to our phones. So yeah, I'd just like to open that up to the panel for views.
Yeah, I'm happy to give a quick comment to that from my perspective. So I think it's spot on from all our different perspectives, whether university or school or road usage, or my kind of general view. We need our phones so much. We pay with it. We use it to COVID tracking. If we want to be available, if we or we check when the bus is coming, stay in touch, everything. So I think that's really the core of it. Like to say, okay, maybe we need to accept that we need our phones on us almost all the time. Like I'm a big proponent of obviously phone free day, but like doing things also without the phone, we will survive. So taking small, if you want to call it digital detoxes or a pause from your phone. So I'm a big proponent of that. But also maybe we need to realize or accept that, okay, we live in a society where we have become quite dependent on the phones, but what do we do with that? And that's when I think the behavior comes in, both behavior and also phone settings. So I think, if we say we need to carry this supercomputer around with us at all times, how do we use it? Do we have notifications on all the time to allow it to distract us from all these different things? Do we have all these different apps on? So I think there's a lot you can do to balance again. So, and I got that question a lot during, well, I need to have my phone when I go out to scan the COVID. Yeah, you can do that and still be conscious of your tech use and still using it without it using you or letting it take over your life. So I think it's a super central question and kind of why I guess we're here to help people say, okay, it's not about not using it, but it's about how do I use it more consciously when I'm with people, put it down when I'm in the car, when I'm studying, maybe I put it in the bag, you know, all these small habits that add up to a healthy digital, strong digital well-being.
Yeah, some great points there. Thanks, Taíno. And I know certainly, you know, that's always been, I mean, something that I've always picked up on from talking to you, Taíno, is that it's not about, you know, all phones are bad, you know, we need to get rid of them. It's really about using them in a way that helps rather than hinders us. So, you know, it's helping us rather than sabotaging, you know, what we want to get out of our day or out of our lives in general. And yeah, I think that's a really important point. So just because we used to have them to scan in, it didn't mean to say we didn't have to have them notifications on. So any other comments from anybody on that? Actually, I'll ask George, because George, you mentioned you know, that you're trying to get your students now to reconnect on campus when they've been in a world of technology. What's your view on that, about how COVID has affected our use of technology?
Yeah, I think certainly something that I'm looking to focus on is our students. So we're obviously have a range of students here, but the majority of our students sit within the 18 to 24 year old demographic. And so for that particular cohort of students, there's really a rebuilding of their self-efficacy. So them being able to believe in themselves in terms of making connections with people in person. So, you know, a kind of focus of our health promotion efforts moving forward in the kind of near future is looking into, you know, just reminding our students that they have that strength within them to connect with people, you know, and they have, so the self-efficacy really just, you know, what's their understanding of their own abilities to connect with people face to face, because there's, you know, a lot of anxiety gets produced around that, right? If it's something that you haven't done for a while, or in a particular environment, it's unfamiliar to you, you know, you're going to have self-doubt and you're not going to believe that you're able to do that. So it's about reminding students of the strength that they have within themselves and the to be able to make those connections. For our staff, you know, I'm a student focused, you know, role, but there are elements that, you know, a well staff equals well students. That's kind of what we think here at the university. There's this feeling of the availability and the 24/7, you know, constant being available for requests or queries from students or other staff members. And so I think that's a focus for us, people in culture, our staff teams, is around kind of how does that relationship between kind of staff being 24/7 available. But that's actually all of us, right? We're all kind of, there's that underlying sense that if someone messages you, that you need to respond, you know, within a certain time frame, or they'll be wondering what's going on, or there'll be these perceived conflicts or ... So, you know, those are some of the challenges that we're looking to overcome. But certainly from a student and a health promotion perspective, it's about that kind of strength and that belief in students around, hey, look, you can, you know, you can meet that person face to face, or talk to that person that's sitting next to you in the lecture theatre, and, you know, your relationships can extend beyond your phone or your social media platform. Yeah,
and I think it's a really interesting point that in relation to how we've all been during COVID, is that we have got used to having, you know, these well, as we are all now, connecting over Zoom or on our phones, and there is a sense of, I don't know whether it's, you know, even amongst everyone, I mean, I certainly, me myself, there's a kind of, not a reluctance, but there's an extra sort of effort or level of, and like you say, anxiety going back to meeting people face to face. And then when you do, that kind of strengthens that connection again. So it's a bit of exposure therapy, I guess, isn't it?
In a sense, I think that's totally right.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, George. One other question that was from our speakers in advance, and this was a question, I'm going to invite Sam to respond first on this one, because this question was around how can we drive change when phone users seem to want change, like nobody wants to crash their car, no one wants to cause harm to themselves or others, you know, students want to use their phones differently, maybe not hide behind them. So do we need somebody to put their foot down and say these are the rules, rather than, oh, here are some suggestions, here are some guidelines around what we should be doing? So Sam, you did just that. You made a rule rather than a suggestion relating to cell phone use. So Sam, do you think that this approach should be applied more widely in society in general?
Yeah, big question, and a difficult one to answer, really. I think certainly coming here from the UK, in the UK schools, they don't have cell phones in school. They're just not a thing. It's not something that's common at all, really, I guess. And over here, there's real hard work being done by teachers and schools and organisations around kind of positive behaviour for learning. So teaching students how to behave. When students don't understand something, we teach them how to understand it or what to understand. And with behaviour, I think it's very similar. Sometimes if students find something difficult, we don't just kind of penalise them and put a rule in place that punishes them. And so there's a lot of teaching that's gone, I guess, around the rule itself. But I come back to that point I made earlier around if we are allowing it to be in school, then it's even more difficult to implement the change, and making sure that we educate the students and the staff and our kind of wider whānau about why it's so important, because the message is out there, but it's out there if you engage in it. And I think educating them around why it's so important and why we as a school have taken a stand has certainly really helped us. The research out there is pretty clear. And there are other, I guess, opinions. I mean, we have plenty of opinions around, hey, it's really, really important for them to have their devices to connect with their employers, to connect with each other, to be able to do something really quickly. Someone said earlier that, you know, mobile phones are far more than a phone these days. You wouldn't take a big phone into the school back in the day, as it were, but now you've got calculators, computers, your calendar, everything's on that device. And kind of linking these two together, we saw a huge. We gave all the Chromebooks that we had certainly on site, we gave away to our students during lockdown because they needed them and they relied on their phones to connect. Some students didn't have Wi-Fi at home. We're I guess, an old money decile 4 school. So we've got a real diverse intake of students from different socioeconomic backgrounds. So in those times, it was really important for students to have their devices. But what we're teaching them now is that, similar to some families that will say there's no phone usage at the dinner table, when we're learning and when we're engaging with learning as a community, that it's really important that we do that. We said about critical thinking and being collaborative. They're all skills that we need to take into the kind of next few years of our life as we prepare for employment, certainly for those young people. But yeah, I guess to finish off, the point of the rule for us was it was very black and white, and our students in particular, they understand the black and white. They may not understand the reasons behind it, and some of them are still vocal to say we should be allowed our phone use again, particularly at year 12s and 13s. But the black and white element of that rule enabled us to enforce it. It enabled us to enforce it as a community, so that we were all together as teachers and we were completely backing each other, students and teachers, behind what the rule was. And I think that made it, it made our implementation happen far quicker, and therefore the impact come a bit quicker.
Yeah, and I think that's right. It's black and white, and maybe it's a question of, you know, having some black and white rules, and then other areas, you know, where there's some kind of flexibility. Because your point about it being what it is, I mean, I think in Germany they call phones handies. They've actually got, they don't call them phones anymore because they're just like a handheld. It's a computer in your hand. For those of you on the call who, you know, were at school doing maths with slide rules and so on, and the teachers used to say, well, you won't have the calculator on you, will you? And well, we showed them, didn't we? But yeah, you're right. You know, it's about having maybe some hard and fast rules, and then other areas which, you know, to Taíno's point, where we can use them flexibly in a way that enhances rather than hinders us. I've just got coming through on the chat from Julie, who says that 95% of Australian schools are phone-free too now. So maybe it is something where there will be a groundswell now here in New Zealand as well. Thank you, Sam. I've got a question here that was sent in from somebody in advance, and this is Amy's area of expertise, which is The question is, with cars becoming smarter with big screen displays and interactive elements, is using a phone really that much more dangerous? So I guess that comes down to, are we really more distracted by our cell phone than by any other potential distraction? You know, kids in the back seat, fiddling with the radio, conversation, any of those things. So yeah, Amy, if you'd like to give us your view on that question.
Yeah, look, it's a fantastic question. And as I said earlier, we know that, you know, distraction can come from all sorts of sources, both outside but inside the vehicle. In relation to mobile phone use specifically, and I guess even more specifically than that, the use of mobile, you know, phone use in handheld mode, if you like, is particularly dangerous because it takes your eyes off the road, and depending on kind of what activity you're doing, can actually take your eyes off the road for far too long. So texting in particular puts you at 23 times more likely to be involved in a crash than if you are paying full attention, because it takes your eyes off the road for around 4.6 seconds. And you know, that's dangerous no matter what speed you're going, but if you're traveling at high speed, then that is, you know, extremely dangerous.
That sounds like quite a long time to me.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. And I think
4.6 seconds.
That's whether you're you know, sending or receiving a text message.
Wow. Yeah.
Take your eyes off the road. So but you know, we also know that using well, we've got a lot of research to show that using a handheld mobile phone leads to all sorts of things, including, you know, being much less aware of what is happening around you, failing to see road signs, failing to maintain proper lane position and steady speeds. People are more likely to tailgate, people react more slowly, you know, take longer to brake and longer to stop. You know, the list kind of goes on. Feel more stressed and frustrated as well, which has been reported. But you know, as to the question, you know, most new car kind of controls do now require or provide the opportunity to access those functions through a touch screen. You know, they obviously become a lot more prominent rather than the traditional kind of switches and knobs that you had to turn. And there actually is a fair bit of user testing that goes into those designs. When I used to live in Melbourne a long time ago, we did a lot of human machine interface user testing for Holden. So that is, you know, something that is done. And you know, of course, there's functionality in place now that allows phones to sync with those built-in displays, and you know, you can do all sorts of things now, can't you, through voice control. And all of those things have been I guess designed to minimize distraction, so that you can kind of still use them while your eyes and hands kind of stay where they belong, and allow you to be more focused on the road. But we do still know, and we know this through research, that, you know, while those interacting with those systems compared to using handheld device are less demanding for drivers, they can still potentially create levels of distraction that are not safe, and you know, we really shouldn't be even in using those that functionality shouldn't be doing the more complex tasks like texting.
I think that actually, just picking up on that level of distraction, because George mentioned the distraction of receiving a text and feeling this compulsion to answer it straight away or within a particular time frame. And I mean, I know myself, if I have had my phone in my bag or I've heard something go off, there's this compulsion to think, who is it? Is that the answer to that question that I asked somebody? Or, you know, do I need to respond straight away? And I guess, you know, we almost need to save ourselves from ourselves. You know, if you're sitting at your desk and you're looking at your phone because you need to respond, then that's one thing. But if you're taking your eyes off the road for 4 seconds, you know, that's another kind of level of danger, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess this is where the do not disturb feature on your phones, you know, is really a really good thing to do if people aren't aware of that option. I'm probably showing my age here because I don't use TikTok, but we have a TikTok video that shows people how to do that, whether you're on Apple or Android. But it, you know, essentially turns off notifications and can send automatic replies to what would be, you know, a distracting text and call. So
yeah,
it's something,
and that's a good example as well. I think, you know, to Taíno's point about using the phone mindfully, to actually set that as a guideline for self. When in the car, or when we want to concentrate on something without distraction, to have that as a just as a personal habit. Thanks, Amy. That comes in really nicely. Oh, sorry, go on, Taíno.
Yeah, no, just two thoughts on your comment there, Madeline. I think, you know, it really comes down to, as an individual, thinking, is technology supporting what I want to do right now? So for all of us in this call, is technology supporting us? Definitely. When I go into the car, is, you know, my smartphone supporting me? Okay, do I know where I'm going? Yes. Probably don't need a phone. Do I not know where I'm going? You know, put in the GPS. Okay, it helps me. When I'm in school or university, Sam and George, okay, do I need a phone right now to, I don't know, look something up? Yes, no. So that's just a thought that came to me, like, you know, like with anything else, if we're, I don't know, have a notebook or a map or a glass of water, if we're thirsty, we use it. If not, no, kind of thing. Maybe oversimplifying it. And then the other point was to Amy's comment there, which I, as a driver, haven't really considered, but these smart functions, they're actually making it I feel like it can be a false friend almost, because like you said, Amy, it would be better off not using it at all, but now we're kind of normalizing, well, it's okay to, you know, have music on because you got it on your touch screen, or take a call because you can say answer the call or click a button on your steering wheel. But what you're doing really is actually introducing more distraction. Maybe less so as handheld, but it's still, you know, kind of normalizing doing other things and facilitating making other things while in the car.
Yeah, I think my final point on that would be, you know, even though you can interact with some of these in-vehicle devices, it doesn't necessarily mean you should, or that it is, you know, safe. So I think, you know, if you do need to use a GPS, for example, or, you know, put some music on, set it up before you go, you know, minimize the time and the amount of interaction that you're doing when you are actually driving. So that's what I would say there.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, thinking about, do I need to use the phone right now at this minute in what I want to achieve? Yeah. And if what you want to achieve is arriving safely at your destination with no harm to self or others, then yeah, sort it beforehand. Look, I'm just mindful of time as we draw the webinar to a conclusion, but I do have one question, and I'd really love to invite everybody to contribute to this question. So please do, you know, drop your thoughts in the chat. And the question for everyone is: do you think attention spans have got shorter due to smartphones? Now, I know a few years ago, the Harvard Business Review reported that it takes 23 minutes to return to a previous level of concentration, 23 minutes, apparently, after checking a phone notification. And we're not that great at multitasking. We're really serial processors. So what do people think? Have attention spans got shorter, and what's the possible sort of impact of that? So please, you know, everybody who's here, do contribute your thoughts in the chat. George, what are your thoughts on that, just to hear from a student perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's we laugh in our office quite a lot, because a lot of the messaging we do now is through platforms like TikTok, like Amy mentioned, and Instagram and things, and that's only contributing to that very issue when most of the time we're encouraging students to come to campus and sit in a lecture theatre for an hour and concentrate the whole time on content. But we're feeding that messaging through a platform that encourages them to take content in really bite-sized formats. So we often giggle at that. But I think, yeah, I'd say absolutely, definitely. And it's a constant battle that we're having. And that critical thinking is really key, right? So being able to have individuals being able to critically think about their consumption and the impact that has on their well-being, I think is a focus area for us. But I'll let some others speak to that.
Yeah, Stacey from our audience is actually. So Stacey from our audience.
Hi, Madeline. Thank
Hi.
you. Kia ora, everyone. I actually lived in New Zealand for about 2 years, but I wanted to I actually live without a phone. I haven't had a phone for 10 years. I'm a digital detox coach, and I didn't do it it was years ago. I just questioned the way I felt carrying around this thing that was a phone when I had it. It didn't have any other function, and it brought up these emotions in me that I wouldn't have with a house phone. So what I noticed with Focus is I actually, every year I go and live in a tent. I live very simple. And 1 year I did 7 months where I practiced lighting a fire with one match. Now, what I've seen right now from Focus is, because I don't own a phone and I actually don't have an internet connection where I live. So what I've noticed is that I can only speak for myself, but what I'm seeing is the attention span of people is, if they're lucky, I'm seeing like 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Now there's a reason why Focus is so important. There's a man named Andrew Carnegie, and he was a steel mogul from the US, equal to Bill Gates. And he rose to the top so fast that people asked what was his secret. And his answer was, he could focus on one thing for 15 minutes. Now, when I talk to most of the people, because I'll bring them to places where there actually is no cell service. So I have them at the level of me, that I don't own a phone, or my house. My house is I actually call it a sanctuary. I have no phone, no internet, no phone is allowed on the property. And so when people come, they read books, they talk. But Focus is really important right now. And we have to somehow, everyone doesn't have to just get rid of their phone. They just have to realize when they have the thought, not always to answer the question.
Yeah, thank you, Stacey. Thank you very much for contributing that. And I think actually one of the questions that we don't actually have time for now, but one of the questions that had come in, which was around, we seem to be scared of being without our phones. And so I think it takes for people like you to live happily and well without a phone to show others that it's possible. So it's not necessarily for everybody, but it shows that it is possible. So thank you for jumping on today and for contributing that. Thank you very much.
Well, just shooting in super quick, and Madeline, maybe you want to close off with, because that's what we want people to experience with phone-free day, right? Whether it's going off social media for a day, because not a lot of people go fully phone-free, but I think, you know, getting them that experience and then building healthy habits from there.
Yeah, that's exactly right, which is what it's all about. So we've got Stacey, who is entirely phone free, and then there's a continuum within that, you know, where people will find their own niche where, you know, how they use their phone works in a healthy way for them. So we have actually come to time, and I had many, many more questions that we could have covered and would have loved to hear from you on absolutely all of them. But look, a heartfelt thanks to all our speakers, to Taíno, thank you for getting up in the middle of the night to be here with us. Amy, thank you, and thanks for the campaign. Let your driving distract you, and do look for that video. It's on TikTok, is it, Amy?
No, the Let Driving Distract You marketing campaign, I'm told, is online. So look out for it online, and you can look it up on our website too under our current marketing campaigns.
Fantastic.
TikTok was how to turn your Do Not Disturb feature on.
Yes, so please do go and check that out. And thank you, George, for all the good work you're doing at the University of Canterbury. And also Sam, yes, if we had anybody who was in our audience who's interested in, phone-free schools, then I'm sure that, that Sam would be happy to talk about how you've managed to implement that at Hillmorton. And for everybody who joined us, thank you. I hope that you're leaving more empowered to continue the conversation about digital health, and also for everybody to have some fun this Thursday on Phone Free Day. It's an annual event, but please feel free to connect via our LinkedIn page. Have a look at our Phone Free Day website, phonefreeday.org, and we can all keep each other motivated and accountable. So thanks very much, and go well, and happy Phone Free Day on Thursday, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Madeline. That was great.
Thanks, Sam.
Cheers.
Bye all.
Bye. Thank you, Amy. Thanks, Stacey. Bye.
Thanks a lot, guys.